Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. This week we are joined by David Stewart, Vice President of Sales here at Sweetwater, correct?
That's right.
All right, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
So we actually started at Sweetwater many years ago, back in 1992.
That's right.
I think you were the fourth salesman, something like that?
I think I was the fifth salesman.
And I must have been the sixth because I started right after you.
Yeah, you came along very shortly after that.
Yeah, so it was just a kind of a fledgling company at that point. It's been around for a while, right? It's been around for...
Yeah, well, the company had been around for a little while, and it's certainly as a recording studio, and then obviously a little bit before we got here started dealing with customers from a retail perspective. And but yeah, I mean, it was a pretty small place at that time, gravel parking lot, small little building.
Right, right. Yeah. Long ways from here with 500 employees and about to embark on a new expansion to the building and everything. Pretty amazing growth in that amount of time.
Yep, it's been a wild ride and a fun ride and a challenging ride in a lot of ways.
Right, but, and since then, you've played a number of roles here at Sweetwater. What have you been doing? Well,
you know, along with you, I mean, I started in sales here and made a lot of good friends with customers and sold a lot of stuff. And for a little while, I ran the service department and tech support and all of that, and then actually ran the marketing department for a while. And a little over 10 years ago, came back into the sales department in my current role, helping to head that whole thing up and make sales happen.
So what do you do in your role there in the sales department at this point?
It's really multifaceted. I mean, there's a lot of training. I'm sure that you've documented before the extensive training that we do, and so I'm pretty highly involved in all of that. And there's a lot of day-to-day stuff. Just we have close to now 200 salespeople. I mean, we're not there yet, but it's getting close. So there's an awful lot of just stuff that goes on. But then I do have a lot of other sort of responsibilities in the company as well. I mean, when we do major projects, for instance, like anytime we do a major refitting of the recording studios or when we put our theater online, I mean, I was very, very, very involved in all of that and helping to design and get the wiring done and have things work all the way that we want them to work, and just lots of stuff like that. I guess at times I've been called special projects guy or whatever.
Right. And a lot of that is because you're one of the very technically strong guys here at Sweetwater. Going back to the very beginning, you've always been one of the kind of leaders as far as the technical knowledge and the depth of knowledge you have in there. Where did all that come from?
Well, I did have a lot of experience before I got here, not only in selling gear, but I opened my recording studio in Louisville, where I moved here from in 1987. It's still open today. And I was a touring live sound engineer for a number of years. Of course, I played in bands before all of that for years and years and years. So I really did have a lot of school of hard knocks, I call it, experience. But I also have a degree in electronics and went to the University of Louisville and studied there, and so got the educational background and all of that. But probably more than anything, I mean, in more recent times, at least when I was working in the capacity of sales here, I just felt I felt compelled when I was on the phone with customers that I've really had to make sure that I knew what I was talking about because they were relying on me for that. And so, boy, I really made it a point to just stay absolutely on top of everything I could, and that, a lot of that knowledge from all of those things has, of course, stayed with me over the years. And it's been a great benefit to have that.
And it's a cumulative thing. I mean, as you go along through the years that you're building on what you've known before, as new technologies come out, digging into those too.
Exactly. I mean, you learn, sometimes you learn the higher level stuff, but then the way I operate, I always want to go back and understand the foundation underneath it and the real underpinnings of everything. And once you get that foundation, then everything that you add on top just makes sense, and you don't really have to start all over again all the time. And
you're passing a lot of that knowledge along in the Sweetwater University classes. You and I actually founded Sweetwater University back in the mid-90s, right?
Yeah, we did. I forgot about that, but you're right, we did.
At that time, it was Tuesday night classes, and we'd teach them for the other sales engineers. But now it's actually a formal program. What kind of classes are you teaching in there yourself?
I teach a variety of sales classes, actually, and I didn't get into this, but I actually do have quite an extensive sales background and have studied with some pretty heavy-duty people in that capacity. So there's a lot of sales sort of philosophy classes that I teach. But then there are quite a few technical classes that I teach as well. I teach classes about studio monitors, like not like, hey, let's go listen to some studio monitors, although we do that, but really, what are the things that people do when they build and design studio monitors that they pay attention to, and what when you pay attention to those things, what's the result? What does that cause to happen?
Right.
I teach a class on, pretty darned in-depth class on digital audio, and really dispel a lot of myths that are out there about how digital audio does and doesn't work, and shoot down a lot of that stuff so the guys can feel pretty armed on that front. And I teach a class on physics of sound and analog electronics. I mean, I give those poor guys a year's worth of university electronics in about an hour and a half at one point. I mean, it's just, it's really fast, but it's just, again, it's a lot of that foundation stuff that you need to know.
Right. It really makes a difference when you're on the phone talking to a customer and you're answering questions, even if you're not specifically talking about the differences between different decibel references. If you have that background in your brain and you can draw on it as you're talking about the gear, I think it really gives you a solid understanding, and you can present that better when you're talking to someone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my philosophy is I don't need to sort of vomit all of my knowledge all over everybody. To me, that's not helpful. When I'm a customer someplace, I don't need the salesperson to prove to me how much he knows and all of that. That's not the point. I just want to be able to let go and trust that they know what they're doing, and they're going to steer me in the right direction based on the questions that they ask and how I respond to those and what I'm trying to accomplish. I don't always want to know all of the details, and that's kind of the way that I try to help them approach it. But you need to have that background and that foundation and that understanding to be able to do that.
Right, right, absolutely. So taking all that technical knowledge, and you mentioned special projects, you've been involved in a really big special project lately with Indiana University. Can you tell us what that was about?
Yeah, for years they've talked about redoing their sound system in the assembly hall where the basketball, among other sports, but mainly it's known for the basketball team plays there. And all of a sudden they just decided, let's do it. We want to do it now. We want it done before the season starts. And they have this big kickoff event, and they really wanted it done by that time. And so, we have a good relationship with them. Obviously, we've sold them a lot of things over the years and helped them out. And they contacted us and said, hey, we would like for you guys to be involved in this project if you can. I mean, it definitely had to go out to bid and go through that whole process, but they really wanted us to be involved. And so we jumped in with both feet really fast and got things together, and did win the bid and went and put a whole new sound system into their hall down there. Right,
but we're not talking about just a couple of speakers and a microphone and a little PA head. I mean, we're talking about a major system.
Yeah, multiple line arrays of big JBL Vertec boxes with London Blue processors and Crown amps and all of this stuff. I mean, it's bigger than a concert touring sound system, and a lot of drivers in there, and just a lot of little details that had to be taken care of. And we had to work overnight. We worked in conjunction with a company doing the installation side called All Pro Sound that we've worked with quite a few times over the years, and they do a really fantastic job. We just love working with those guys. They're great. And so they really did a lot of the nuts and the bolts of really getting everything in and doing the structural rigging and engineering and all of that stuff, and did a fantastic job. But it was challenging. I mean, we could only work, for instance, at night. I mean, they needed the building during the days, so we would have to go in at 8 o'clock at night and work until 8 in the morning and then clear out until the next night. And you're in there with cranes, literally, flying these big boxes 100 feet up in the air. Well, you can't drive a crane on a basketball floor. So every night at 8 o'clock, we had to construct a floor on top of the basketball floor in order to drive the equipment out to be able to lift the boxes up in the air and do all the work. So it was a massive project in the amount of time that we had.
How long did you have to do the whole project?
The whole thing from beginning to end took about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Which is...
That's usually like a 6-month project.
Yeah, it would normally take months to do all of that. And we just, basically focused all of our resources in that one area. They needed it to be done in that time frame, and so we got it done. Right.
That's a really cool thing. I mean, obviously we're here in Indiana, and the whole basketball thing's a big deal here, and we're close to IU, as you said. So yeah, really a cool thing to be part of, and what an amazing accomplishment.
It's a legendary hall, a legendary basketball program, and I am really proud to have been involved in it. And I also happen to really like basketball. Now, I'm from Kentucky, so I'm not saying that I use my team, but I'm really happy to have supported them in that capacity, and they're ranked #1 right now, preseason #1. So.
Very cool. cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Dave, thanks for coming in.
My
It's great
pleasure.
having you here, man.
Yeah,
21 years we've worked together, most of the time anyway, those 21 years. It's been quite a journey here at Sweetwater.
Yeah, absolutely has. It's been awesome. Loving every minute of it.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, man.
Okay, bud.
I'm Mitch Gallagher. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute.